The sky was not blue that day. It burned red with smoke and fire as ships fell like broken stars across the horizon. On the field stood the last line of defense. Tall alien warriors in sharp armor, faces painted in symbols of their victories. They had never lost a war. Not once. And they believed this battle would be no different. General Varela stood at the front, her blade humming with energy. Her voice roared through the battlefield, cold and certain. No human survives past this line, her people cheered. They feared no man, especially not the ones from Earth. She believed humans were weak, slow, and far too emotional to fight. Like true warriors, her belief was law among her army. That belief was about to break. In the dust behind the fallen dropships, a lone figure moved. Covered in battered armor, face hidden beneath a cracked helmet, the human soldier marched toward the alien line. His name was Cole Brennan. He wasn't famous. He wasn't a general, but he had survived battles that were meant to kill him. He had seen comrades fall. He had lost everything. Now he walked forward not for medals or glory, but because he had nothing left to lose. The alien warriors laughed as he approached. One even stepped forward, pointing at him with a spear. "One human? Alone?" she said. "We should thank him for bringing us sport before lunch." But Cole said nothing. He kept walking. The dust rose around his boots. He moved like a ghost. Like death had let him go for one final mission. General Varela narrowed her eyes. She raised her hand and stopped her troops. Something was different. The way he walked, the silence around him, the weight in the air. She felt something she hadn't felt in years: uncertainty. Still, she stepped forward, sword in hand. "You should kneel, human," she said, voice sharp as steel. "Save yourself the pain, or die quickly if you're lucky." Cole lifted his helmet just enough for her to see his eyes. They weren't afraid. They burned with focus. Before she could speak again, he struck, faster than her eyes could follow. His blade wasn't made of alien tech. It was human-forged steel, scarred and dirty, but it moved like lightning. He ducked, spun, and slashed her shoulder, sending sparks into the air. The crowd of warriors gasped. No human had ever touched their general before. Blood shimmered on her armor. Varela stumbled back, more from shock than pain. She stared at him with wide eyes. He had moved like a predator, clean and precise. She had fought hundreds of warriors across 100 worlds, but none had landed a hit in the first move. He wasn't just a soldier, he was something else. Something dangerous. Cole didn't wait. He charged again, dodging spears and blades with brutal speed. Every step he took was silent, every motion trained and sure. He didn't fight like an army, he fought like a storm. And now that he had struck blood, the fear spread. One alien fell back. Then another. Their belief began to shake. Varela roared and leapt at him, her sword flashing like fire. They clashed, sparks flying, boots kicking up dust. Her power was undeniable. Each strike was strong enough to dent steel. But Cole didn't match her strength. He outmaneuvered her. He read her like a book, slipping through her guard, cutting at her pride, breaking her confidence with each blow. The warriors around them stopped cheering. Their shouts faded to silence. They didn't understand what they were seeing. This human wasn't supposed to win. He wasn't supposed to last more than a few seconds. But now their general, their undefeated champion, was bleeding, gasping, stepping back with every strike. Varela tried to steady herself. She grit her teeth and screamed, swinging with all her might. But he didn't dodge. He stepped in. One strike. His blade hit the center of her armor, just beneath the ribs. The force knocked her to her knees. The pain was real. The fear hit her harder. She looked up at him. For the first time in her life, she saw defeat. Not in herself, but in her enemy's eyes. He hadn't come to win glory. He hadn't come to prove anything. He had come to end it. And now, standing over her, he waited. His blade didn't move. His eyes didn't blink. The battlefield held its breath. A single human had crossed their line. A single human had struck down their strongest. The world had changed in one moment, not with an army, not with a bomb, but with one man and one strike. Asterisk, no one moved after the blow landed. The alien warriors stared at their general on her knees, blood dripping from her side. It wasn't just a wound, it was a message. Cole Brennan hadn't just broken her armor, he had broken their belief. Varela clutched her ribs and stared at the ground. Her mind tried to make sense of what had happened. She had faced giants. She had won duels that lasted hours. But this human had ended it in minutes. His blade had found the weakest point in her defense. He had seen it before she even moved. Cole stepped back. He didn't finish her. He had no interest in killing a wounded opponent. That choice confused the aliens even more. They expected cruelty. They had been taught that humans were animals, desperate, savage things. But this one had honor. It made him harder to understand. And more dangerous. A second in command rushed forward. Her name was Laka. She raised her weapon, ready to avenge her general. But Varela lifted a hand and stopped her. "No," she said through clenched teeth. "Stand down." Her voice trembled, not from pain but from something deeper. Shame. She had made a mistake. She had underestimated her enemy. Laka stared at her, confused. "But General, he won," Varela said. Her words were heavy. "He won because we believed he couldn't." Laka lowered her spear. Around them, the rest of the warriors shifted uncomfortably. Their world had turned upside down. They were not fighting a weak race. They were facing something they had never trained for. Cole turned his back to them and began walking. Not a word, not a threat. He moved as if nothing had happened. As if defeating the alien general was just another step in his journey. That made it worse. That made it feel like he could do it again. To anyone, inside their main command ship, alien warlords watched the feed. Silence filled the chamber. For weeks they had mocked the human resistance. They called Earth the dying rock. Now that same rock had produced a man who moved like a weapon crafted by the stars. Who is he? One commander asked. No one had an answer. He had no rank, no file, no origin. Just a name whispered among the survivors. Cole Brennan. The ghost of Naver 9. The human who kept coming back when he should have died. Varela was taken to a med chamber. Her armor was peeled off carefully, the wound treated with glowing salve. She winced but said nothing. Her pride hurt more than her body. She stared at the wall, thinking about every fight she had won. None of them prepared her for this. She remembered the way he looked at her. Calm, cold, like he didn't care who she was. He had no fear of her title, her history, or her army. He had simply seen her as another enemy and ended the fight with brutal efficiency. It was more than skill. It was purpose. Back at the edge of the battlefield, Cole found a burnt-out dropship and sat against the broken hull. He checked the edge of his blade, still sharp. His hands were steady, but his heart was heavy. He didn't enjoy the fight. He didn't care about winning. He only cared about making sure no more humans died because of arrogance. A young alien scout approached from the shadows. Small and unsure, she held a white flag made from a torn banner. Cole didn't reach for his weapon. He just looked at her. "What do you want?" he asked. She looked at the ground. "The army. They don't know what to do now. You changed everything." He nodded slowly. "Good. Maybe now they'll stop underestimating humans." The scout tilted her head. "Are all humans like you?" Cole gave a bitter laugh. "No, most are better." She didn't understand that answer, but she stayed silent. Cole closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't need medals. He needed time. Time to figure out what came next, in the alien council chamber. The generals debated how to respond. One loss should not matter, they said. But it wasn't just a loss. It was the idea of invincibility that had been shattered. That idea couldn't be rebuilt easily. Not when every soldier had watched their champion fall in real time. Varela returned, her side bandaged, her eyes darker than before. She didn't speak as she entered the chamber. She let the silence sit. Then she said, "You want to know what happens next? You listen, you learn, you change." The room was still. She continued, "We're not fighting animals. We're fighting humans, and we don't understand them, not yet." Someone asked if she planned to challenge him again. She shook her head. "Not yet, he won. I'll face him again when I understand what drives him. And when I'm ready to do what he did today." It was the first time they had heard her speak with humility. Out on the broken plains, the sun began to set. Cole watched it in silence. He knew this wasn't over. That fight was just the first. They would come again, smarter, stronger, but now they knew what humans were capable of. And that was a start. The next morning, the alien camps were quiet. Warriors trained, but their movements lacked the same fire. Eyes watched the sunrise with caution, no longer sure of their dominance. Whispers spread about the human with no fear. Some said he moved like lightning. Others said he had no soul. But they all agreed on one thing: he should not have won. Cole Brennan stood alone again. His uniform was patched, his blade cleaned. He wasn't looking for another fight, but he knew one would come. It always did. He scouted the battlefield. From the ruined cliffs, eyes scanning every shadow. He wasn't hunting aliens, he was hunting hesitation. Because hesitation got people killed. In the heart of the alien command, General Varela trained harder than before. Sweat dripped from her face as she practiced strikes against holodrones. She had reviewed the footage of the duel at least 50 times. She paused at every frame, trying to see what Cole saw. What had he known that she didn't? Her second in command, Laka, watched from the corner. "You are not wrong to lose once," she said. "What matters is what we learn from it." Varela didn't answer at first. She struck the drone again, then dropped her blade. "He fights without fear," she finally said. "But fear isn't the weakness. Arrogance is." That was the first time anyone in their ranks had spoken those words out loud. Arrogance had blinded them. Cole had torn it away with one strike. Now the aliens began to adjust. They started training in smaller teams, mimicking human tactics. They studied Earth's wars. They practiced humility. They started to evolve. Cole noticed the change. When the next patrol attacked, they didn't charge with confidence. They moved in sync, tried to flank him, aimed for weaknesses. It wasn't enough to beat him, but it showed something dangerous. The enemy was learning. They were adapting. He fought hard, ducking through cover and striking fast. One alien got close enough to scratch his shoulder with a spear. That was new. That meant they weren't just testing him, they were trying to win. And that meant the next wave would be worse. After the skirmish, he limped back to the hills. He patched his shoulder with a strip of cloth and winced at the sting. He wasn't a machine. He bled like everyone else. But pain didn't stop him. It reminded him why he fought, not for revenge, not for power, but so others wouldn't have to. He found a small human outpost hidden in the rocks. A few soldiers remained most wounded, most tired. When they saw Cole, they stood straighter. He didn't ask for cheers, but they gave them anyway. "They're scared of you," one soldier said. "Even their strongest backed down." Cole just nodded. "Good, that buys us time." A young engineer handed him a message pad. "Command wants to know if we should fall back or hold position." Cole stared at the screen. He didn't like either option. Falling back meant surrendering ground. Holding meant bleeding more soldiers. He handed the pad back. "We wait, but we make them come to us." Back in the alien war room, Varela watched reports come in. Patrols were missing. Units had been turned back. And the human was still alive. She stood silently, her hands behind her back. "He is not a hero," she said aloud. "He is a warning. If we don't change, he will be the start of our fall." Another general scoffed. "He's just one man." Varela turned sharply. "That's the point. Just one, and look what he's done." The room fell silent. No one argued again. They decided to send someone new, a special unit. Not to fight Cole, but to learn from him, track him, study his style. A spy. A shadow. She would move like one of them, but her purpose would be different. Her name was Sira, quiet, precise, curious, and dangerous in her own way. Sira began her work by following Cole from a distance. She stayed high in the cliffs, blending into the ruins. She saw how he fought, how he moved. But what surprised her most wasn't his skill. It was his kindness. She watched him share water with a wounded soldier, fix a radio with bare hands, sit beside a dying man and hold his hand until the end. She didn't understand that. In her world, weakness was discarded. But this human carried the weak, protected them. And somehow he still won. That confused her. It also fascinated her. One night, Cole looked straight at her hiding spot. She froze, thinking she had failed. But he didn't reach for a weapon. He just said, "You've been watching for 3 days. You want to talk or just keep spying?" His voice was calm. She didn't answer. But her mission had just changed. Sira returned to the alien camp and told Varela something she hadn't expected. "He is not the strongest fighter I've seen," she said, "but he is the most dangerous. Because he fights like he already knows how the war ends." That single sentence changed the War Council's plans. They could no longer ignore him. They would either break him or learn from him. And some began to think that maybe, just maybe, the future of their people depended on understanding one human. Sira stood at the edge of the cliff again. Below, the human outpost flickered with soft lights and quiet voices. She could hear laughter, even after all they had lost. She didn't understand how they found strength in such broken places. Her people trained for war since birth, but these humans endured with hope. That was a weapon her kind had never respected. Her orders were clear: observe, analyze, report. She had followed Cole for days, watched him move like a phantom, strike like a blade, but now her interest had shifted. She wasn't just watching a soldier. She was watching something else. Something rare. A kind of will that couldn't be trained. That night, Sira did something no one expected. She walked into the human camp with her hands up. Soldiers raised their rifles. One shouted, "Stop! Identify yourself." But she didn't run. Her voice was calm. "I'm not here to fight. I want to speak to Cole Brennan." The humans exchanged confused looks. Then one lowered his weapon slowly and tapped his cum. Minutes later, Cole stepped out of a tent. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. He said nothing at first, just studied her. Sira held her ground. "I'm not your enemy, not right now." Cole didn't blink. "So what are you?" She took a deep breath, curious. Cole didn't trust her, but he didn't shoot her either. That was the first step. He waved for the guards to lower their weapons. "You've got 5 minutes, talk." She nodded. "Your people aren't like we were told. You're not just survivors. You fight with purpose. Even after everything, you build, you protect, you care. Why?" He tilted his head. "Because that's what makes us human." She frowned. "That's not a strategy," he shrugged. "It's not supposed to be. It's who we are. You came to learn that?" Sira nodded. "Yes, and to warn you. My commanders are preparing something bigger. They want to end this quickly." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Why warn me?" She hesitated. "Because if we destroy you without understanding you, we lose something too. And I think Maybe understanding you is the only way we survive what's coming." The camp was silent as her words sank in. Cole didn't respond right away. He stared at the ground, then finally said, "I don't forgive your people. Not yet, but if you're willing to listen, then maybe you're already different." Sierra didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed. It was the first human truth she had ever earned. Over the next few days, Sierra remained in the camp. Watched the humans build defenses, share food, fix broken tech. She watched them argue and laugh. They treated her with caution, but not cruelty. That surprised her. On her world, an enemy in the camp would be executed without question. But here, they waited. Judged her by her actions, not her title. She sat with Cole often, sometimes speaking, sometimes just observing. He told her stories of Earth, of ruined cities, and lost friends. She listened without interrupting. She told him nothing about her own past, but one night she whispered, "I used to believe my people couldn't lose, until I met you." He looked up from his blade. "And now?" She hesitated. "Now I wonder if we already have. Just not in the way we thought." Far from them, in the alien war command, Varela grew restless. Her scouts had lost contact with Sierra, and reports showed that humans were no longer retreating. They were setting traps. Winning skirmishes, morale was rising. And something had changed, something silent and dangerous. A new order was issued. A massive assault was being prepared, not a strike team. A full cleansing wave, no survivors, no mercy. The plan was to erase the human resistance in one burning sweep. Varela opposed it. "We've underestimated them once. Doing it again is suicide." But the War Council didn't listen. They still saw humans as a nuisance, not a threat. Only Varela had felt the sharp edge of their will. And now she feared it would cut even deeper. Back at the camp, Cole stood on the hill with Sierra. Wind blew over the wreckage of old machines. "They're coming," she said. "Everything. Ships, bombs, fire. They want to end you before others hear your story." Cole's jaw tightened. "Let them come. But this time we won't run." Sierra looked at him. "You can't win." "Not with numbers. Not like this." Cole nodded slowly. "Then we don't fight them with numbers." He pointed at the valley below. "We fight them with what they don't understand. Courage, unity, truth. That's where their blind spot is." Sierra took a long breath. "If I stand with you, I won't be able to go back." Cole looked her in the eye. "Then don't go back. Help us show them what it means to fight for something real." She didn't answer right away. But she didn't walk away either. And in that moment, a new alliance was born not of politics or strategy, but of respect. The sky was black with storm clouds and smoke. Alien ships hovered like metal giants above the valley. The great assault had begun. The enemy believed this would be the final blow. They expected panic. They expected humans to scatter. But what they saw instead was strange and silent. The humans stood ready. Cole Brennan stood at the center of the valley's narrow entrance. Behind him, the remaining human soldiers prepared every trench, turret, and trap. Their armor was patched, weapons mismatched, but their hearts were steady. These weren't soldiers fighting for medals. These were survivors defending a future. Beside Cole stood Sierra. She wore no armor now, just a simple cloak over her black bodysuit. Her eyes scanned the sky. "They're bringing all their firepower," she said. "But they don't know you've built this place into a fortress." Cole nodded. "Let's make sure they find out the hard way." The first wave came fast drones, sweeping low, firing beams into the rocks. Explosions tore through empty ground. But the humans didn't fire yet. They waited. Let the enemy waste their strength. Cole whispered, "Hold the line." And the humans obeyed without fear. Alien infantry followed. Thousands in gleaming armor, charging in formation. Their boots thundered. They had numbers, power, but the humans had studied them. Every route was trapped. Every stone was marked. The first units hit hidden mines. The second were caught in collapsing paths. Panic spread. Then the humans opened fire. From the cliffs, energy rifles and coil guns lit up the night. Cole led the first charge into the chaos. He didn't stand behind the lines. He ran forward like a storm. Every strike of his blade was precise. Every shot counted. Sira followed him, fighting her own kind with a speed they didn't expect. The alien warriors were confused. Their perfect formations broke. They had expected a scattered defense, not this unity. They hadn't seen this kind of courage before. One by one, their lines fell apart. And still Cole fought forward. General Varela watched from her command cruiser, eyes locked on the battlefield. She clenched her fists. "They were waiting for this," she said. "We didn't catch them by surprise. They caught us." Her second-in-command stared at the collapsing formation. How? How are they holding us off?" "Because we believed." "The wrong story," Varela growled. "We thought humans were weak, but they're the ones who refuse to break." She ordered her elite guard to land. "I will end this myself." As the battle raged, Sira found herself beside a wounded alien. "Soldier." He looked at her in shock. "Why do you fight with them?" She didn't hesitate. "Because they fight for each other. Not control, not power, just each other. That's what makes them stronger." Cole pushed deeper into enemy ranks, sweat and ash on his face. His blade flickered with blood and heat. His shoulder burned from a fresh wound, but he didn't stop. He saw fear in alien eyes now. Not just fear of him, but fear of the idea he represented. The idea that one human could turn the tide. Then the wind changed. A shadow dropped into the battlefield. Varela herself. Her armor glowed, her eyes burning with fury. Her sword was drawn. She walked through fire and broken steel, heading straight for Cole. They met at the center of the battlefield. For a moment, everything around them slowed. Even the sounds of war faded. She pointed her sword. "You should have died the first day." Cole raised his blade. "You should have listened the first time." Their blades clashed in a burst of sparks. The force shook the rocks. Varela struck hard, each blow powered by rage and shame. Cole blocked and countered, calm and focused. She fought to prove herself. He fought to protect the others around them. Soldiers paused to watch, human and alien eyes fixed on the duel. It wasn't just a fight between two warriors now, it was a symbol. The pride of an empire against the will of a man who refused to kneel. Varela struck again and again. But her attacks grew wild. Cole moved with precision, waiting for the right moment. Then it came. Her guard dropped. One opening, one step forward. One strike. His blade tapped her shoulder, just like before. She froze. The fight was over, but Cole didn't strike again. He lowered his weapon. "End this war," he said. "Before it ends all of us." Varela dropped her blade, her breath heavy. Her pride shattered for the second time. The battlefield held its breath. And slowly, the alien soldiers lowered their weapons, one by one. The fire had faded. Not from defeat, but from a single moment of clarity. In that valley, between the ash and the blood, peace became possible. Asterisk smoke drifted slowly through the valley. Blades were buried in the dirt. Rifles powered down with soft hums. All eyes were on the two figures at the center, one human, one alien. Both covered in sweat, blood, and dust. But neither moved to strike again. The war had paused in their silence. Cole Brennan stood tall, his chest rising with heavy breaths. His blade hung low, no longer needed. He had fought not to kill but to show something his enemies had never seen before. That humans didn't win because they were stronger. They won because they refused to surrender who they were. Varela knelt, her blade laid across her knees. She looked up at him not with hate, but with understanding. I believe no human could ever defeat me, she said. But you didn't defeat me with strength. You broke what I believed. Her voice was steady now, not angry, not proud. Just honest. Around them, warriors and soldiers waited. The battlefield had become a courtroom, no judge, no jury. Just a choice waiting to be made. And Varela made it. She stood slowly and turned to her soldiers. We return to our fleet. We end this war. Not because we were beaten, but because we were blind. We thought humans were weak. We were wrong. Her voice echoed through the valley like a command no one dared to challenge. The alien forces began to withdraw, not in shame but in thought. Many looked over their shoulders at the humans, confused, curious. Some even nodded. Respect was being born in the ashes of what could have been destruction. Sira walked to Cole's side. Her face was calm, her eyes proud. You changed them, she said quietly. Not by force, but by showing them who you are. Cole gave a small, tired smile. I didn't come to change them. I just wanted them to stop killing us. Sira looked at the distant ships lifting into the sky. You did more than that. Back at the ruined outpost, humans cheered and cried. They hugged each other. Some sat quietly, still unsure it was real. But it was. The enemy had left. The war, at least this part of it, was over, because one man had refused to kneel. And because one warrior had the courage to admit she was wrong. Varela returned to her war council. She stood before them with her armor scarred and her head held high. I lost to a human, she said. But in that loss, I found something we never had. Humility. Now we rebuild, not with force, but with understanding. Some on the council objected, but others listened. And those who listened became the future. Sira stayed behind. She no longer belonged among the ranks that had only known domination. She chose instead to help the humans rebuild. She walked beside Cole, helped guide wounded refugees, and even learned how to cook human meals, badly, but with effort. One night, beside a fire and under the stars, Cole asked her, "Do you miss your people?" She nodded. "Sometimes. But I think I found something here that I never had there. Purpose." He poked the fire with a stick. "You ever think about what happens next?" She glanced at him. "Yes, and for once, I think the future might be worth fighting for, not just surviving but living." Cole didn't reply. He just stared into the flames. He hadn't meant to become a symbol. He hadn't planned to stop a war. He was just one man who refused to accept the lies told about his kind. And in doing so, he had changed the path of two worlds. In time, stories were told on both sides, of a human who fought with honor, and of an alien general who had the strength to listen. And somewhere in that valley, the burned stones and broken weapons were left untouched, a reminder that one strike in the hands of the right man could change everything. And from that day on, they never underestimated humans again.